Okay, this is the start of video number 2. It's a little ride around Greensboro, North Carolina to look at a failed info structure. Now you will notice there is a metal pole, which I find kind of odd. Okay. Check that out. And check this out. This is Greensboro's old grid. This surrounds all the community's underground utilities line systems. That was a mouthful. Yep, those two poles have got a little bit of a lean to them. This is being filmed on a pod, in case anybody wants to know. I think that's what they're called. Okay. According to the standards that DOT and a lot of these other organizations, even Wikipedia shows that these poles are pretty standard for utility lines. Pretty normal wires. I question those transformers like that, overloading weight, but other than that, here we go. These little selfie poles are nice. Okay, Wire City. That's what I'm calling Greensboro now, Wire City. Now this is around the Lake Jeanette area. See how nice and clean they really look? I do question those transformers like that, adding too much weight to the poles. Ooh, and there goes the coon. Still pretty normal looking power lines. They're not overloaded. And they don't have a lot of abandoned lines. Okay. Now, a lot of these poles are right on the road, but they have the guards up to keep people from hitting them. But we're coming up on a pole that is less than a foot away from the curve. Now look at that. Coming right around a roundabout. It's a foot off the road. Now that's in violation of DOT. And we're still in the Lake Jeanette area. Poles and wires look fairly normal. One transformer per pole. That's what I was always told. Now look at this pole here. That pole there has got a bad crook in it. It looked like it was about to snap at the top. Wooden poles. Keep in mind, a lot of these poles are the original poles set when they were set originally. Life expectancy on those old, what they called motor oil, Creo or something like that, oil that was put on those poles back then to preserve them. Okay. Now here we are at the loop. Excuse me. Underground, folks. Now we're getting back to some wires. And poles with 3 transformers. Now we're coming up on Pisgah Church, and the whole atmosphere changes. Check this out. According to my research, that pole right there is way overloaded with weight. And that's not the half of it. Greensboro's really in bad shape. And we are headed for one major blackout. I guess they would call that the storm of the season when it hits us. This is scary. It really is scary. To think that a utility company can run every bit of this with no supervision from anybody in our state. Now, these are overloaded. I'm sorry. When you get to those huge lines that are at the bottom of these poles, that's thousands and thousands of pounds. That's tonnage. Tonnage. That pole's leaning. You can just follow the lines with these poles, and you can see where they're leaning. I don't understand why some are, we have one every once in a while that's a metal pole, and then others that are not. That to me does not make any sense. Those transformers again. 3 on a pole. Check that pole out. That pole is maxed out. I'll get a better shot of that when we come back up. Now look at that pole. That's an old pole. Those poles right in here are at least 50 years old. This is North Church Street. And this is going to pretty much make my case. This is the old grid. This is why you keep having outages. There's never any repairs done unless there is a problem. Check that out. That's, oh gosh. Check out that leaning pole. Isn't that something? Maxed out, overweighted, old poles. Check this pole out. I've got a picture of what a telephone pole looks like in China, and it's pretty close, folks. Pretty close. And then right beside of it, it shows a standard pole for North America, and it looks nothing like any of this crap. It tells what every line is for. Look at that weight, that rolled up mass of stuff. Look at it. Why do they not remove that? I don't understand. Whenever you see rolled up lines like that, instead of cutting it, they've just rolled it up and left it hanging. Extra weight. Here's one. Check that out. Weight. And I'm wondering how much of that's abandoned. What I mean by, hey, those rolled up pieces, they're abandoned. They're either old or they're new lines where they had extra. I have seen that so many times, and I am not even an electrical expert. But I do have common sense. And I do know that these poles are overweighted. That is overweight, folks. Every bit of this, overweight. Abandoned. Or when the linesmen were putting it up, they just had extra and they rolled it up and left it. There's more. Rolled up. Traffic's horrible. Now ahead I can see a pole that has a big crook in it, and it looks like it's actually touching the other pole, but it's not. And it's from overweight. Check that out. I mean, it's not just me, folks, saying this stuff. Oh dear. There's a pole. Now that pole's got too much weight on and it's bending. I'm not an expert, but I do have eyes. And I have noticed that the new poles that they are putting in are a whole lot bigger around than the normal poles. They're huge. And you know, there's a leaning pole with a brace, a metal brace. How ingenious. Okay, we're gonna go down Cone Boulevard. Leaning poles, leaning poles. You know, the whole deal is they could have come in and put all this underground like they said they were years ago. Leaning poles, look at all that weight hanging. And here's some of it rolled up on the ground. Old poles. Old poles. I can find creosote on some of these poles, I know. All I have to do is pull over and look. Now that one's been braced by another pole. Okay, I don't know how clear this is since I am in the sun now, so we're gonna turn and hit Elm Street. And that's a really old pole. Creosote, I can see that. Now this is just one street over. This is Elm Street. Check it out. There's no wires. This is what Greensboro was talking about in the 70s. Street lights on poles. Underground utilities for the city. We're being robbed, folks. Terribly. They have just hit up the North Carolina Utility Commission for another rate increase to pay for coal ash bills, to pay the workers for the last time that we had an outage here, which would have been our snow and ice storm. And they want to buy back their own stocks. And they've got the nerve to tell us that they are going to use money that they get from us to buy back their own stock. And they need some more money. And they are the #1 power energy company in the world. Let that sink in. And they want us to give them money to buy their own stock back. And I've been screaming for a while, and I don't know why somebody's not investigated the fact that they have taken and on their rate increase, the last 3 times it has included coal ash cleanup. Okay. Coal ash cleanup 3 times. They also claimed it on their insurance damages, and they're claiming that stuff at the end of the year on their taxes as losses, and we're paying for it too. I see fraud there, big time fraud, and I don't know why insurance company is screaming about this. I mean, it's not like they're hiding the fact that they're asking for a rate increase and telling us what it's all about. That pole's overloaded. It's so overloaded that it's got a bend in it. All this new stuff needs to be going underground. on this loop, loopity-loop, the urban loop. Not more poles going up. Yes, it's going to cost Dirty Duke more, but in the long run, it's 98% safer for human beings and wildlife. And just think about it. These linesmen won't be putting their lives at risk anymore. The risk goes down to like 10%, whereas before it was constant. What, 100%? Always at risk. Bending pole. Overweighted. And we are just about where we started. But I'm going to end at the roundabout and that last pole. And what really bothers me is these poles have been brought to their attention. They would like every tree on earth to be cut down so it wouldn't block their lines or their poles. I really don't want to know, but I'm going to do some research to find out if extra trees and such was cleared in order that Dirty Duke put all these poles. Look at that pole. Leaners. Got a crook in it. There's the crook pole. Alright, here we go around this roundabout. Now, check this pole out. Right there. That's illegal, folks. See how these next poles are? That's how they're supposed to be. And that's right after you come around that sharp curve with the roundabout and that pole sitting a foot off the road. I don't even think it's a foot. I think someone told me it was 11 inches off the road. Huh. Greensboro is a beautiful city, but we can't see parts of it for the wires and the poles. And they're old, and that system is going to fail, and we are going to have a major blackout here in Greensboro. Because this new construction they're doing has put a strain on this old infrastructure, and it can't handle it. And it's going to be a chain reaction. Just like 2 weeks ago, we had an outage. It followed these lines right here. And every time it would hit a transformer that didn't have what we call, as layman's, a surge protector in it, it popped it and kept going down the lines. I call them a free, wild ball of energy. Just ricocheting and hitting. And we're going to come up on the intersection where that outage started. And it was a line fire. Check that pole out. It's got too much on it and it's leaning. Can't stand the weight. And then we have a little bit of snow, and down stuff comes. And now there was a line fire right here. And it traveled down the line 2 weeks ago, and it knocked out over 4,000 homes. Homes. I know I said I was going to cut it off a while back, but overloaded right there. Most definitely. I don't know what those big ones are, but you can tell by the way they hang down. They are loaded. And they're about 1.5 inches to 2 inches around. Those are your phone and your cable wires on the bottom. I did learn that from Wikipedia, who shows a great standard for what a telephone pole in North America looks like, with everybody's lines running on them. One line. I think that's one reason why everybody in Guilford County should take their hats off to North State, because they hit the ground running here. In our old neighborhood where we had above ground lines, they could have hit our poles, but they didn't. Look at those poles. They're leaning. Leaners from weight. But North State hit the ground running. They put their lines underground in our community, in our neighborhood. And they could have went on the poles. But they chose to go below.